with Robert again.
Okay.
Welcome.
Yes.
And this time we would like to talk about unique ways of learning languages that are effective. Something that you use, strategies that you use in teaching and in your approach towards language learning.
Okay. So I'm probably most known for the fact that I create games to learn languages. And the reason I create games...
So actually you don't learn, you play.
We play, yeah. Because that's how children and adults learn. Maybe adults
too, that's very important.
Yeah. A lot of adults don't want to admit it, but that's how children
But they love playing games.
Not always, not always. Some people are stuck in their ways. But games for me are probably the most important. They're far better than books for learning.
Why?
Why? Games allow you, I don't know if you've ever been in a class where you've had a book and it's just sort of a natural reaction of a teacher to go through chapter 1, and when chapter 1 is finished, it's finished. And the problem with that is language definitely needs a certain amount of repetition. And even though you've seen the information in chapter 1, when you're learning the language, it doesn't mean you've assimilated the language in chapter 1. And seeing and assimilating and studying, I don't think books are very good for allowing assimilation. And that is to say, you can study certain...
There is a nice series, Assimil, because you said the word assimilation.
Yeah.
Assimil. And most, among others, they use jokes also in their books.
Yeah, jokes which help you remember. But with games, you can repeat the same information again and again.
Because the game is different every time you play it.
The game is different every time you play it. And the outcome is different. And if you said to students, oh, let's repeat chapter 1, the first reaction is,
no, I've done it already. Again, yeah.
You know, and when...
You all know it.
I remember when you guys were in class on Saturday mornings, there were lots of mornings that we played Payday. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that game, some of the teachers thought I was crazy for playing, but the things that we were doing when you guys were selling and buying things and you had to exchange and use a certain type of language, this repetition is absolutely necessary for the teacher to be exposed to and to correct, and it happens in a more natural way. Yeah. If you have
that with good emotions that you have doing interaction with others.
Exactly. If you're doing an exercise in the book and you're saying, I would like to buy a new car. How much does it cost? It costs $3,000. Here's the money. Thank you. And then
repeat.
I'd like to buy a refrigerator. How much does it cost? It costs $800. Here it is. Thank you. But when you're actually buying the thing, and
in the context,
and you
it's alive.
Exchanging the card, and one person is earning money, and another person is thinking, God, I have to pay for this thing. You have an emotion attached, and it begins to have meaning for you.
It's active. That's why you remember it much better.
You remember it much better.
Okay, I also like your approach towards grammar, because you are also a musician, a singer.
Yeah. And
tell us, what is your very original method for teaching, for learning grammar?
Well, I do, for tenses, I've sort of been creating songs. And I also use songs that have been written to teach other parts of grammar. There are songs on the 12 parts of speech in English, and
But I've heard your songs about tenses, and they're amazing because they just stay in your head, and you cannot forget.
Yeah, it's true.
Habits and routines, that's what the simple present means. I go to school and I play, I do that almost every day. Facts, habits and routines, that's what the simple present means. The world spins around the sun, Another day finishes when it's done. You see, the simple present means something's always true. It's true. It's a tense that you rely on to express the things you do. Oh, facts, habits, and routines. That's what the simple present means. She bites her nails, does she smoke? That's not right, and it's
This is the
no
teacher's
joke.
job, to find, if you can't find the materials, have the decency to try to create them. And that's why I say people who really want to do this job, in our last discussion, should be people who really want to do this job. Because it's not enough to pick up a book and say, turn to page 1. I mean, it's very funny because I'm considered a lazy teacher because I do play games. But what most people don't realize is I had to create all my games. I had to think them out, and then I had to bring them to class.
And the fact is you get results.
Yeah, and I do get results. And I have one of my students who's working at Allegro, and he's now programming the games, because he's a computer programmer. He's now programming the games that I've created.
Your games.
Yeah, and
They're going to be online.
they're going to be online. And he told me that he only remembers the classes that I taught. And when it comes to English classes, he has real memories of what they were doing. And he says, and this is, creating a memory is attaching the language to the student's intellect in a very special way.
This is how our mind works.
Yeah.
That we remember.
We remember things, and when we're emotional about things, it is so much easier to remember what's going on. This is why a teacher has to learn how to laugh with his students, and he has to learn how to care about his students, and how to create a moment.
You know, in fact, I still remember, I don't know, jokes from our classes and lots of laughing. But really feeling good in the class.
Yeah.
I think that was the essence of it.
Yeah.
Feeling good in the class.
I had to fight the director of that school to pull it off. I mean, because she wanted us in that book, and the book they had chosen for us was absolutely boring. And I told her I wouldn't do this to a dog. I said I wouldn't teach a dog using this book. And she didn't like that very much. She was like, this is a Cambridge book, and I was like, I don't care who created it. It is I said, and I told her, Kasia, I have one rule. If I'm bored in class, then the rest of the class must be bored too. I said,
because you give example as a teacher.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I said, and I tried to take your book home and plan a lesson on it. And when I tried to plan a lesson with this book, I think I went to sleep in 5 minutes. And I said, this book is a cure for insomnia. And
so it's useful.
It is useful.
But not in the class.
But it's not useful for learning English. And
okay, so to sum up a bit, and what would be your message for language learners if they get into trap of being bored or being frustrated with learning language? What would be your
the easiest way to learn a language is to find a way to have fun.
To sum up, can we say that the key is to focus on enjoying the process?
Yeah. And finding what you like to do in any given language. Because I admit not everybody likes playing games. So it could be a mistake for some people. I'm not convinced of it because I think if you have a methodology where you can approach, if you can get past the fact that I am using games and think of them as linguistic tools, where you're allowed to see the same information again and again without being bored, and find a way of creating with that information, then you will eventually learn. I know when I've tried to study a language in a book using a very didactic sort of grammaric method, it hasn't been very successful. When I've done games and activities and found things to do, I mean, like I played Caesar in German for the longest time, And video games are excellent for people who really, I remember, I mean, half the time that I'm doing something, I'm doing it through observation. When I first came to Poland, there were all these 15-year-old boys who were playing video games, because it was 10 years ago, and there were no bilingual, or there were no Polish versions of the video games at that time. All these kids were coming up to me and saying, Mr. Robertson, what does this word mean? And what does that word mean? And they were like some dead serious words. And I was like, why do you want to know that? It's in my video game.
They were naturally motivated.
They were naturally motivated, and they were learning so much. And I said, and games, and then of course we said jokes. You mentioned the asimiu. Asimiu is a very good method in that it's got these little stories that happen to be jokes, and some of them are quite funny. And so, this is the way to learn.